Okay, we're live on most of social media and waiting for Instagram. Always waiting on Instagram. Maybe I'll just stop using Instagram one of these days. And this time, maybe it won't work. Oh, nope, there it is. All right. So let's get this trailer going. Leadership, workplace mental health, entrepreneurship. This is Victory Leaders Lounge. All right. I love how cheesy that is. Anyway, all right. Welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. And today we have another guest. He's over in North Carolina, and he has a business called Omniverse, and his name is Jeff McDaniel. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Jeff McDaniel. We're Omniverse General Contractors. We're a veteran-owned general contracting company in Winston-Salem area, North Carolina. We started our business about 2.5 years ago. After I got laid off from a pretty horrible company that I worked for, but took that as an opportunity to kind of grow something into that we're not really used to, because we came out of aerospace engineering and manufacturing. Started this business because we hated general contractors, so we decided to become one.
That's awesome. And you are a veteran. Which branch of the service did you serve in, and what's your background there?
So I started off active duty Army, enlisted as an E1, and got out in 2002. Came back in National Guard, went to OCS, and then in 2015 I transferred to the reserves. So I tried all three of them, and then getting ready to retire this year.
Excellent. Well, coming from another veteran, I'm going to say thank you for serving. I understand the sacrifice and everything that goes along with that. And somebody that raises their right hand for that many years, and you'll know what I mean when I say continues to deal with all the crap that the military puts you through, then, they got my vote. So thank you for doing all the things that you've done. Now, on the other side of that, you said something very interesting. A lot of entrepreneurs, it seems like they are guided into entrepreneurship because of terrible workplace conditions. Yep. So, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And then, because this usually guides people's why. And I know you said it's because you didn't like general contractors, but I'm sure there's a story behind that. And that usually is what makes people so successful.
Right. Yeah. For me, it was, I worked for, in the aerospace industry, it was fine. I had a really good experience there. I worked there 15 years while serving in the Guard and the reserves. But then after my last deployment, came home in 2020 and decided to move down to North Carolina, and worked for an automotive company. It was probably by far the worst company I've ever worked for in my life. Just safety issues, leadership changeovers. It was constant, just constantly in a state of chaos, and there was really no direction. Then the company got bought out. My position got eliminated, which I was totally fine with. I'd actually started the business 2 months before I got laid off. So I had it in my mind that I wanted to do something different. I'm retiring from the military this year, and why not just try to, I guess, change career paths, have that midlife crisis, and start something completely different. But I've always done renovations on my own houses and friends' houses. We've done a couple flip houses, and just, contractors have a bad rap when it comes to not showing up on time, not calling you back. We got tired of kind of dealing with that throughout the last 20 years or whatever. So I decided that now it was time for us to find something that you love doing and figure out how to make money at it. And So we started the business. Actually, right after I started the business, I got offered a job from Amazon, and it was a really good paying job. I was going to be a senior operations manager for one of their sites. And I chose not to go that path, which Amazon's a great company. I'm not sure how they treat their employees, but from a management perspective, they treated their managers really well, from what I was told. But I decided that I didn't want to go down that same path of working for somebody, um, and having to kind of be beholden to them on what I could do and how I could change the company and the strategy that I wanted to bring forward. So our goal right now is to hire veterans and work with veteran subcontractors. So we also have a goal to bring more women into the trades as well, which is probably outside this podcast. But from our point of view, we've got 2 veterans that work for us right now. One has been with me since the beginning. We met each other at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he started working for me about 1.5 years, 2 years ago now. And it's been, without him, we wouldn't have been where we are right now. Been able to do the things that we're able to do. And then we just hired on a master carpenter, and he started with us full time, which he's a former Navy guy, and we won't hold that against him, but we'll, he's awesome. He's been a great asset to the team. And so we're trying to bring more veterans into the workforce. But we also use companies like Combat Junk. They do all of our demo, all of our junk removal. He was on one of your episodes a month or so.
He's a great guy. Yep.
Yeah. And so Steve got me hooked up with you, and Steve's awesome. He just started a veterans networking group here in the Triad, and so we're trying to at least support other veteran small businesses in this area, and who knows where that actually will lead to in the future.
Well, I'll be moving to Virginia next year, so that's not too far away from where you guys are. So maybe I'll have to get linked up with you when I get into the local area. But what's interesting to me is that you talked a lot about, actually my why for going into business is that I struggled with bad leadership at a lot of the companies that I worked for after I retired from the Army in 2018. The biggest thing that a lot of people don't do is they don't take the word of their employees and managers very seriously. And coming from a military background, and I think you'll agree with this, that's something that we hold in high regard because nothing happens without the people in your organizations. Right. So when you told me that was kind of the reason that you were starting your company even before you got laid off from that automotive job, it really resonated with me because that's kind of the same thing that happened. I was in a transportation logistics position in my last company, and there were some things that happened there that I'm not going to put on blast specifically, but I helped them do some things, and then they gave a position that I was potentially promised to somebody else because they didn't want to hire from within. And so I ended up going out on my own and starting my own business in leadership because I want to show these civilian companies how that can be beneficial. So you started your own, and so did I. But my purpose for starting my own was to kind of knock these guys over the head and say, "Hey, serve your people, and they'll serve you back."
Yeah, I think for us, that's another reason why we did what we're doing. I got tired of, you're like in my last job, I was like a prison warden, and we had 700 employees, and it was 7 days a week, 8 to 10 hour days. And you were forcing these people to come into work and barely paying them over minimum wage. And
oh my gosh,
it's like, why would you want to live your life and work 7 days a week for a company? And why would a company even think that would be right for them to treat people like that? And then, they don't show up to work and they get points, and it's a Saturday. It might be their kid's birthday, or somebody in their family passed away, or whatever it might be. We have to give people time to kind of reset and come back to that shitty job that they don't like anyway.
Sure.
And then try to motivate them to do good while they're there. And so when I started this company, we all have a good time. Like every day is fun. It's stressful. You're in somebody's house and you're doing renovations, or you're on some commercial job. And you've got tenants in the building that are trying to get to work, and you've got owners and that kind of thing that are stressing you out a little bit because maybe the place isn't as clean as it needs to be, or this person might be doing something in the wrong area, or whatever it might be. But it's still, at the end of the day, one thing I learned in the military from one of my awesome leaders was, you always reward in public and you discipline in private. And so that's kind of how we run our business. My employees don't work for me. They work with me. They're our teammates, and without them, we're not successful. And I think more businesses should be that way. And then we also, one of the things that we're trying to do right now is, as we bring people on and we start to train them, even if they have no training at all, we want to bring them in, train them in the trades, and then grow them to the point where they can go out and be on their own and start their own business and create more small businesses. So that way we keep that small business and veteran small businesses kind of growing in the U.S. And we never hold anybody to, hey, you have to stay with us at all times. But we always tell them, like, look, we're gonna take care of you and then try to train you and push you out.
Well, so what you said something very interesting earlier on, and that was that you were upset with the idea that contractors had this reputation of not being on time and all of those things. But I'm sure there is so much more that you are doing. And by the way, if you're training people to do the same thing, I'd like to find out, especially in your area, and please spell that out, what area you're in North Carolina. But I'd like to know what you're doing differently and what you're training these people doing that makes them kind of set apart from the rest of the contractor workforce.
So the area that we're in right now is the Triad. It's basically Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, that area. We also have, we're going to start opening operations in the Triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, probably in the next 12 to 24 months. And we want to kind of expand out into different parts of North Carolina, so we're not just held to the Triad. And really, from there, general contractors have a tendency to, what we've seen, we've gone into job sites where a general contractor was either let go from the client or just stop showing up, just stop showing up at all. But they've taken money from the clients, and now the clients have a half-done job, or now they're asking us to come in and fix it. And the problem with that is that you end up having to take it apart to put it back together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got these contractors and flippers too. Flippers are probably the worst, because when they're flipping a house, they're buying it for $60,000, putting $20,000 into it, and then selling it for $175,000, which is a great profit. But we look at it as you're putting that family that buys that house at risk for safety issues in that house and financial burden on that young family who's trying to move into a small house, first time buyers or whatever. And, their floors are buckling, or they've got structural issues or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
they just do a horrible job, and they're not licensed contractors. In the state of North Carolina, you're required to be a licensed general contractor for any projects over $30,000. And anytime you do a flip house or a major renovation, they're typically over $30,000. And you can hire people that aren't licensed, but they don't care if they are licensed. I mean, there's 29,000 active general contractors in North Carolina, which is insane when we heard that. But they're also hard to find. It's hard to find a general contractor to call you back. It's hard to find them to show up at your house and give you do a site visit and provide you with a proposal for free. And then once they do provide you one, they don't come back, right? Or they don't follow up with you. So we try to, one of I was in the 160th on active duty, which we had a slogan was like time on target plus or minus 30 seconds. And so I try to live to be that close to, if I say I'm going to be there at 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be there at 10:59 or 11:01, but there's other contractors out there that are saying I'll be there between 1 and 5, or I'll be there at some point on Wednesday. And people it's not fair when you're asking them to do a service for you to have to sit around as a client waiting for them to show up. Like the client is the person that's paying the bills. And so you should be there when you say you're going to be there, and do what you say you're going to do.
Yes.
And we went into one job, and it was a bathroom renovation, and she had been with this contractor for 6 weeks, and the bathroom was still in the demo phase. And Steve, we do demo and it's done by lunch. We're already reframing and getting ready for plumbing and electrical, like on Monday, when we demo. So that's kind of what you get when you get us, which is different than what we've seen other general contractors.
And so you also train these other people on these same principles and values that you hold to be true, and how you practice in your contracting business. So when they go out and start their own companies, man, that's awesome. I would love to see a post or something sometime that I could share to my audience that would kind of show some of these companies that have left you and gone out, so that we could share that, because those people, they're not just their own company now, they're also a representation of you. And I know that's kind of how we live in the military, is we train people to be better than we are. That's kind of because we, if something happens to us and we get killed on the battlefield, we have to make sure there's somebody behind us to pick up the slack and perform the job just as good or even better than we did. So, I love that. And I think that, people in my audience would also like that, especially if they're in your local area. So thank you for doing that. I hope you're willing to put something up about that, because I would happily share that with my audience. Jeff mentioned that he was in the 160th. So that's a special operations aviation regiment. And they have different areas. I worked with them when I was stationed up at Fort Lewis, JBLM as it were. And so the thing that you have to know about that is that, the special operators, they have a different set of values and timeliness when it comes to getting things done than even the rest of the active duty force. Part of that is they have all the money backing to make sure all that stuff can happen. But the other part is the stuff that they're doing is extremely important. So the values that Jeff has, I guarantee they are on point with how that goes, and being able to respond quickly is extremely important. So I'm sure that's a value that he also has. Just wanted to put a plug in because you said 160th, but for the average person, they don't exactly know what that is.
Right.
So great. I like the values that you have in your company, and the leadership that you're showing. I'm sure it's 10 times better. And I have to highlight something that I'm sure it's Michael again, but he put a couple comments up here. He said, "Your word is your bond, especially in the service. Thank you for serving. My brother-in-law was in the Navy. Well, thank you for valuing what we do, buddy." And then he put this one up there. If you discipline in public, the respect your people have for you will fail fast. And that was, I have a feeling that was based on the comment that you made earlier on how you take care of business with your people. How important is that? It's not just discipline that you do in private. Any important conversation that you have with an employee, and I know you probably have this value too, you pull them away from everybody else and make sure you give them the time and attention that conversation deserves. And I'd like to hear more about what you have to say about that, because it seems like difficult conversations and communication is one thing that in my business I've noticed that the entire workforce struggles with.
Yeah, I mean, for us, for me at least, I spend a lot of time with my guys and girls. Like we spend a lot of time doing some pretty tough work, and it's not the easiest work to do, and you just have to remember that they have families as well, right? They have families obligations. You never know what's going on behind their closed doors, and a lot of the times I end up knowing way more about my employees or my teammates than most of my managers ever tried to learn about me or anybody on my team. And I learned a lot of how I wanted to be, or how I wanted to lead an organization by the bad leaders that I had in my life. I learned more from them than I learned from the good leaders. I learned from the good leaders of what I want to emulate, but then I learned from the bad leaders, and there was a lot of them, that this is what I don't want to be. And pulling people aside, having those conversations, or even taking the time, even when you're at crunch time and you have a deadline to meet, and you've got clients that are, they want their kitchen back, or they want their bathroom back, or you have an issue where, there's just a lot going on, but your employee needs to have a conversation with you, or you need to have a conversation with them, and taking that time to just kind of listen to them and really understand where they're coming from, is something that I probably spend. Some people would say I spend too much time doing that, which I don't. I think it's what makes me me, and that's who I want to be. Like I used to come to work with a dress shirt, no hat, slacks, and nice shoes, and now I go to work in a t-shirt and a ball cap. And if you don't want to do business with me because I'm wearing that, and then I don't need to do business with you either. But my guys are all, we have a very open relationship. If somebody has an issue with me or with what we're doing, they feel, at least I feel they feel confident that they can bring that to my attention, and they've challenged me, and it's okay to be challenged by people that are on your team. If you get offended by it, then you got to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing the best that I can do as a leader to make sure that I'm listening to my employees or my teammates, and doing the right thing, and kind of growing that team. And you end up having a very loyal, for us, we have a very loyal subcontractor base, and we have very loyal teammates too. So, the trim carpenter, or the master carpenter that we just hired, owned his own carpentry business, and we've been working together for the last 2 years. And he said, I want to come and be on your team. I want to be on the Omnibears team. And he shut his business down to come work for us, because
Wow.
he sees the value in what we're trying to build here. And he wants to be part of that leadership growth, and the financial growth as well, of course. But he wants to be part of a team that, is forward thinking, and is looking into, taking this small construction company that does kitchens and baths and small commercial, and turning it into a multi-million-dollar business. And that's our ultimate goal. Like we have sometimes our goals, or my goals, my team would say, are a little too high, but why not? We want to be $100 million business in 10 years. Who says we can't? So
I agree. It's land of opportunity.
Yep. And if you don't have that goal, then you're never going to achieve it. If we say we want to be $100 million in 10 years and we make it to 50, that's still pretty awesome. So,
yeah, I agree. Well, you mentioned two very important things, and that's that, your values, your personal values are most important. And if people don't want to work with you, then they don't have to. I mean, you can move on, and I'm sure there's plenty of work for you to do out there with other people. But, a business is full of people that do a job. And that's, I think, the most critical aspect of leadership that people forget is, they focus so much on all of the being in the red and all these other crappy things that happen at these larger companies. And they forget that the people are out there impacting these statistics.
mm-hmm.
And when you forget about that really takes your leadership down a very steep hill, and And that's the difference between a manager and a leader, is the person that cares more about the people and understands that serving them and their needs is going to help the overall mission get done, and it'll probably get done more efficient, and they're going to be willing to do anything that it takes to get the job done a lot more, because they care about the leader that's asking them to do the work. And so I think that you have built that culture in your company, but you also said something about ownership. You didn't outright say it, but you did. When you're having a conversation with somebody and you get offended, you have the emotional intelligence to take a step back, think about it, and say, well, what did I potentially do wrong to make Joe Snuffy say this about me, or say what they said to me or to that other person? And when you take responsibility for everything within your sphere of influence, because when you're a leader at the top level, a leader, not a manager or a business owner, but a leader, because there's a difference there too, then, you're thinking about what can you do different to make sure that the result that upset that person doesn't happen again. And so I like that you said that. I think it's very important. And it's also another critical aspect that a lot of people forget. And it's probably the most important principle, other than communication in leadership, is to make sure that you are taking that level of ownership. So I appreciate that you said those things, because people don't necessarily just highlight that when I'm having conversations with them. A lot of times they'll keep quiet, and then they'll have a conversation with me after I click the end stream button, and they'll say, what do you mean about that? Yeah. But those are two very important things. So thank you for taking those approaches. And, not every business owner takes that level of ownership.
Yeah. I think some of that, just to add to that too, is, I started as an E1, I was a private, and I'm getting ready to retire as a major. And, don't forget where you came from. And, those guys on the ground that are doing all the hard work is making your life at the top a lot easier. And yes, as long as you keep that in check, and they see that, and they know that you're willing to get dirty if you have to, and put the time and effort into it if you have to. My guys will literally tell me, like, you need to leave the job site and go find more work. And they'll tell me, they'll give me that ability now, to stop working on the job. Where I was working when I first started the business, I was in the job every day, all day, laying tile and hanging drywall and all that. And yeah, today they tell me, hey, go find the jobs, go sit on a podcast, or go to a networking event or something like that. And so I appreciate my team for that.
Yep. And when they really care about you, they'll say those things.
Right.
If you're the person that leads from the office, they're not going to say those things, because they know that you're just going to be asking them to do the work, but you're never going to be willing to get the hands dirty. I retired as a chief warrant officer. I also started off as an E1. And, when I would make these transportation plans for these organizations to go from point A to point Z, which means like from, let's say, the combat zone from Fort Bragg, we'll just say for an example, I would have to make every step of the plan so easy to understand that the private E1 that is down on that lowest level would get it, so that when it's briefed by that major to the captain, to the sergeant first class at the platoon level, when he briefs his team, when they're going out to execute these operations, that everyone is considered. Right. And oftentimes I would have the clerk, that E4, come over and look at my plans before I go and brief the colonel, because I wanted to make sure that, I don't want to use the term dumb it down, but it's, if you think of it that way, it means it's easy to understand. And we're talking about an organization, by the way, that they put front facing enemy on a Claymore mine because they know that soldiers are going to screw it up. So I gotta put that out there too.
Right. No, it's very true.
No, but thank you for everything you're doing. I want to ask you before we close up shop here, because we're right at about a half hour. Do you have any closing comments that you'd like to share with my audience?
I guess for me, I've always wanted to be a business owner. Never took the opportunity to do it because it was always like you you got to make money to put bread on the table. And I was afforded an opportunity when I got laid off that I could have gotten another job for somebody else, but I decided to go and start my own business. And if that's your passion and that's what you want to do, and that you think you can do a better job leading an organization than your current leadership is, then you need to take the chance and do it. It's worth it. The money's not worth it right now. It will be hopefully soon, but your ability to control your own destiny is well worth it. And they say that entrepreneurs will quit a 40-hour job to work 80 hours. And I think that's definitely the case, but it's well worth it.
You got to put into work to get the results, and eventually it's not going to be that way. And so you got to see the light at the end of the tunnel while you're doing that initial hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I completely agree with you. And I'm still kind of in the same stage. I haven't even been in business for 2 years yet. I will be in June. So I'm still at that stage where I'm putting in all that extra work to hopefully see the results. And they usually say, 5 years? If you can stick it out for 5 years, then
that's what they say.
That's what they say. I hate thinking that magic number. I know it's going to happen quicker than that for both of us, but yeah. Well, thank you for being a guest on my show, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
If you stick around for a second, I'd like to just chat with you for a couple of minutes after I click end stream. But for the audience, if you like this information or if it resonates with you and you feel like other people need to know about it, like it, subscribe to it, share it, repost it, whatever platform you're on, do that thing to make sure it gets to your audience. However, the most important thing is that if you think it's important to keep the conversation going, make sure you comment wherever you're seeing this video and asking the questions or saying the things that you think are important about these topics, so that, it keeps on going back up in the algorithm and people keep on seeing it that way too. Thank you all for watching whenever you see this podcast or whenever you hear it. And I look forward to talking to you soon.